Success is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters consistently. And because you know, and I've been called out, I'm on a statistic kick, but I'm keeping it because the more I find to back up this information, the more I believe it as well. 94% of entrepreneurs report feeling quote unquote stuck. Right? I don't know what to do. I don't know where to put my time. I'm overwhelmed. I'm drowning in tasks. They feel stuck even though they're working harder. But research shows that simplicity outperforms complexity by 3-1. So what if your desire to do more is actually preventing your growth? Well, welcome back to the Mind of George show, where we understand that our job is to break free from outdated business models, tactics, and strategies that don't work, and the copy and paste that makes your soul feel like it needs a shower, all so that you can scale in alignment with ease and impact. You have messaging that matters, you have customer journeys that deliver results and bring you more customers and referrals, and you also become the entrepreneur to get the results that you desire. And in today's episode, I dive deep into why some of the best entrepreneurs that I've met, most likely yourself, and myself included, get trapped in overcomplication, the 3 biggest buckets that are blocking your growth, how to identify and eliminate unnecessary complexity. I talk about the power of simplicity in scaling and practical steps that you can do today to break free from that overwhelm. So without further ado, let's dive into the show. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right? You're following all the strategies, building the systems, checking all the boxes, but somehow you're in that magical word of stuck or feeling resigned or that you want to throw in the towel? Well, that's today's episode for you because you are not alone. The biggest reasons that entrepreneurs get stuck or stay stuck, which is also called stagnation, is not a lack of effort, it's overcomplication. And the reason I'm sharing this is I just landed a couple of hours ago from being in Calgary at one of the best events, 125 women. I got to MC the event, 125 female entrepreneurs in a room from all different industries. And the number one thing that came up and the biggest takeaways and all the incredible speakers was on avoiding overcomplication so that we can actually have the results that we desire. And in true incestuous fashion, I'm also going to keep this podcast really, really direct and to the point, because by the end of this episode, I have 3 buckets for you to go look at for clarity and questions to answer to help you simplify your business and to get out of that stagnation and get back into momentum. But it's really important to understand that simplicity scales. Because overcomplication, which looks many different ways as entrepreneurs, it leads to that stagnation, feeling like we're stuck, we don't know what to do, we're hiding, or we're hiding more in our phone and the details than we are in the field and executing, which leads to the 2 biggest problems, which is overwhelm, right? Where you constantly feel like you're on the edge of tears, or frustration, or that there's never enough, or that you can't finish everything on the list, which then starts to massively influence decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is where you start to second guess yourself. You start to have doubts. You start to wonder, is this even going to work? Whether it worked before. And it's this really nasty washing machine cycle of complexity that deepens our feet in the mud. And the truth, like the really, really hard part, and I say it's hard, and I'm going to leave that it's hard, because it's simple to talk about, but it's not always easy to execute because it requires discipline and focus, is that simplicity will always scale. The most successful businesses and entrepreneurs are not doing more, they're doing less better. And even if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, well, what do you mean? You look at somebody with their physical health goals. There's people I know, myself included, that work out 30 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day, 3 days a week, and have more energy and better results than some people who go to the gym for 2 hours a day. And it's not by doing more. It's by knowing what to do and doing those things to the best of our ability so that we can get the results. And I think with entrepreneurship, it's really easy to fall into the bucket of overcomplication. And I think it's important to understand why we do it. I know for me, one of the biggest reasons that I still accidentally overcomplicate is because of this deep-rooted fear of failure, letting people down, not knowing if it's going to work. And so when I have this fear of failure, what it ends up looking like in business or even in life is overcompensation. I end up building unnecessary levels or layers of protection. I add way more steps. I look at a course that I used to sell and I would add 30 more videos because I thought that that was the value. Or I looked at my weight loss journey, and instead of me just simply eating less and walking more, I try to go to the gym for 2 more hours a day. It's all these extra steps or more offers or more meetings or more conversations and the quote unquote endless tweaks. Well, I got to tweak it again. I got to tweak it again. I got to tweak it again. And then in this reference, dinner never makes it to the table. That fear of failure that I've had was really a fear of success. Because what I was doing is I was keeping the recipe in the kitchen and I was never putting it out into the world for somebody to taste it, which leads me to the second why. And I know there's way more whys than this, but after being at this event for the last couple of days, these were the ones that I heard the most of. And the breakthroughs for them with the questions that I share below later in this podcast in a couple of minutes were the things that brought the clarity, that created the excitement again. And so the second belief is that more equals better, right? That I need more tools. I need more strategies. I need more team members. I need more work instead of I need more results. And so that trap gets really, really sticky because the more we add, the more complexity we add, the more resistance we add, the more confusion we add, and the less likely we are to get the result, but also the less likely we are to be able to clearly see what created the result in the process. And then the third biggest why that I saw is chasing perfection. Because this is where you fall into, I think, one of the stickiest places, which is the addiction to the iterations while avoiding the execution. And I know I joke about this all the time, but the fork didn't make me fat. And thinking about the gym didn't get me to the gym. Thinking about running didn't make me a better runner. Thinking about recording an Instagram story didn't post the story. Thinking about what I would say on the call didn't make the call. And so the third one is that chasing perfectionism. And so we find ourselves like clear and ready to go. And then we're like, oh, but what if we add this? Or what if we make it look this way? And then the overcomplication or the iterations becomes the new stagnation trap. And so we've all felt this. We all have it because I don't think any of us as entrepreneurs are immune to this. And I think this is one of the biggest benefits of having a coach or a team is that you can make commitments to each other to protect simplicity so that you're not wasting time, but you're getting an execution. But what this might look like is you have too many offers and nobody knows where to go. You have complicated funnels that you have trouble keeping track of. You're trying to execute 35 different strategies at once. Or you're constantly switching directions instead of doubling down. And I love using real life examples because if we think about this, when we're constantly switching directions or changing the plan, we're not allowing ourselves the time to see the progress fast enough, right? We don't see it fast enough, so we change. And so then we change the plan and we prevent ourselves from having the process. Just like weight loss, it's no different than entrepreneurship. Just because you get an idea and you try something for a day or a week doesn't mean it's going to work. Sometimes it requires consistent inputs for 30 days or 60 days so that you can start to taste and see the results and then make iterations from there. And I think when we understand this overcomplication, the one that we mostly feel, or the one that I feel the most and hear that people feel the most, is that feeling of overwhelm, right? Like falling into busy work, staying on the phone, checking our emails, opening Google Docs, making things in Canva, which actually makes the overwhelm feel worse, but it's preventing us from doing the one thing that would actually create relief, which is moving forward. It's taking a step. It's trying something. And if you've listened to this podcast long enough, I like to talk about food because I think food is the best way to learn lessons in life and entrepreneurship. But if I go make a recipe and I taste test it and I realized I use salt instead of sugar and it's unedible, it doesn't matter how much I think about it, how many times I taste it, how many times I stare at it, how many times I research it. I'm not going to have another meal to eat unless I get out another batch of ingredients, replace the ingredients that's there, and then make the dinner again. And I think that that's probably the easiest metaphor to understand entrepreneurship and overcomplication when it comes to focusing on the simplicity that moves the needle. And so the way that I see this, and full credit to my incredible business partner and rock star of a woman, Stacey Gray, who's been on the podcast, she has this incredible model called Delegate and Elevate, and we co-coach and we're doing events together. But really what it comes down to when you're removing overcomplication and getting back to simplicity is identifying the 3 biggest buckets in your life where the complexity is happening. And these are the 3 buckets that she uses, and I love these to pieces. So what you're going to do, and I'm going to be very specific about this, is you're going to need a pen and paper, and you're going to need some solo time. And that solo time is not on a computer. It's not with your phone. It's not listening to music. It's going somewhere that you don't normally go. Going to a coffee shop you've never sat at, going to a park and sitting out in nature. And you actually get out a pen and a piece of paper. And there's 2 parts to this. Part number 1 is the emotional dump, the brain dump, the idea dump, the complexity dump, all that noise in your brain dump. And you write it down in 3 big buckets. So your 3 big buckets are this. Bucket number 1 is your emotional bucket. Bucket number 2 is your personal bucket. And bucket number 3 is your business bucket. And so on a piece of paper, and have a different page for each one, I want 1 page of the emotional bucket, 1 page of the personal bucket, and 1 page from the business bucket. And when you start this, you're going to allow yourself to just free write, or I call it verbally diarrheaing on the page. And when you're in this bucket, let's take the emotional bucket. The purpose of this bucket is to clear the mental clutter, because business growth is emotional growth for us. Because if we're stuck, most of the time it's not a business problem, it's an emotional one or a perspective one. So we have to clear space. So step 1 is you go through each bucket, the emotional bucket, the personal bucket, and then the business bucket. And on each page, you just dump out all the clutter, all the confusion, all the overwhelm, all the frustration, all the anger until you feel complete. And then you take a break, you take a breath, you go walk around that park, you go order a decaf Americano if you're me, and then you come back. And then for each one of these buckets, I'm going to give you 3 questions that I want you to reflect on, or I want you to take the time to answer. Okay. So for the for the emotional bucket, the emotional bucket, I want you to ask yourself 1 to 3 of these questions. So question number 1 is, what am I afraid will happen if I simplify? Right? Am I afraid of success? Am I afraid of failure? Am I afraid of judgment? Am I afraid because I haven't done it that way? So question number 1, what am I afraid will happen if I simplify? Question number 2, where am I making things harder than they need to be? Am I overthinking? Am I iterating too much? Am I second guessing? Am I avoiding taking action in the details? And then question number 3, if I fully trusted myself, what would I do differently right now? So those are the 3 questions for the emotional bucket. And we'll also have these in the show notes for you. The second bucket is the personal bucket. And I think a really easy way to understand the power of the personal bucket is knowing and believing that your business should serve you, not the other way around. That you shouldn't be a victim to your business. You shouldn't be an employee of your business. You shouldn't be in the passenger seat of your business. You're in the driver's seat, and the point of your business is to serve you, your personal goals, your relationship goals, your lifestyle goals. But in order to do that, we need to have the perspective to make sure that we're not getting lost in the weeds in our personal life as well, or that we're sacrificing our personal life and expecting a positive result in the business. And so the 3 questions that I want you to utilize, and you can make up your own, but these are 3 that I use, is question number 1, do I actually enjoy the way I'm running my business? Do I actually enjoy the way I'm running my business? And if not, what needs to change? Question number 2, what is my personal vivid vision or personal North Star in business? Right? So what is that thing that I'm referencing? What do I want this to look and feel like? How do I want to feel when I come to the office every day? How do I want to feel when I get on calls? How do I want to feel when I work with clients? And then question number 3, What's one thing I need to let go of to create more alignment? Is it a strategy? Maybe it's a belief. Maybe it's the way you create content. Maybe you're not comfortable recording videos and you want to write instead. But what is one thing I need to let go of to create more alignment? And so those are the 3 questions for the personal bucket. And then we're going to move into the business bucket. And the purpose of the business bucket is to remove the noise. And so if you've ever heard of Pareto's principle, 80% of the results that we create come from 20% of the work that we do. And so with the business bucket, the goal is less, but doing the less better. It's not about being spread thin in 15 buckets or 20 buckets, right? You've heard me say this on the podcast before, that most people lose on width, but win on depth. And the truth is you want to go deep. You want to find the things that work, and then you want to do them better and build process and system around those things. And so the 3 questions for you in the business bucket is, what is the 1 to 3 things that are driving 80% of the results that I like? Because your job is to double down on that. Where am I adding unnecessary complexity? Am I on too many platforms? Am I so overwhelmed with creating content that I'm not responding to the people who engage with my content? Am I running out of time? Am I doing 90-minute calls when I could be doing 30-minute calls? Am I sending too many emails because somebody said to do this and I could send less and make them better? And then the third one is, if I had to cut my strategy in half, what would I keep? So those 3 questions again. What's the one thing driving 80% of my results? Because I'm going to double down on that. Where am I adding unnecessary complexity? And if I had to cut my strategy in half, what would I keep? So keep what works and drop what's extra. And so part 1 of this is creating space for yourself. Could be a half an hour, could be an hour, could be 4 hours, could be a whole day, could be a weekend in the cabin. You get a notebook or a pen and paper, or my favorite is the big sticky notes, like the 36-inch ones, and you write down those 3 buckets. You write down the emotional bucket, you write down the personal bucket, and you write down the business bucket. And you do them in that order, because your emotional bucket is going to allow you to look at the personal bucket with clarity, which is going to allow you to look at the business bucket with clarity. And so the first phase is you give yourself time and you brain dump everything in your brain, every heart, every feeling, every thought, everything that you have. And then you step away for a few minutes, and then you come back and you ask yourself those 3 questions in each one of those buckets, because the answers to those questions are the things that you take action on. And the biggest part of this, where I said it's simple and it's not easy, is it's simple to get the clarity most of the time. What's not easy sometimes is maintaining the discipline and seeing it through the finish line. And so here's my encouragement for you. I want you at minimum to pick at least 1 question from each of those buckets. And I want you to start taking the action to simplify those answers. And I can promise you that nobody can come do this for you. And I love my best friend TJ, and I have a belief too that my client's unconscious mind knows way better than I do what the answers are. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what's happening in the personal bucket. And you can tell me parts of it, but I'll never know the true meanings. And your relationship with your pen and your paper and your journal is 100% yours. And so give yourself the power of being radically honest with yourself. If you're frustrated, be frustrated. If you're sad, be sad. If you're angry, be angry. If you have a belief that you're not cut out to this, like, give yourself the ability to put all that power on paper so that you can look at it with clarity. Because if you pick at least 1 of these questions for each bucket, and you create this space and you create the date, and then you find the clarity and then you prioritize that clarity, that's how you go from complexity to simplicity. Because it's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater or emptying out the entire pantry. It's taking micro steps over and over and over again as you work to actively bring it into integrity, as you pursue that simplicity, because you're going to have more noise added. There's going to be things that happen. You're going to see a new strategy that somebody's doing, and you're like, there's a shiny object. But when you have clarity on paper and in your journal and you commit to it with the discipline, you also can start to realize that those shiny objects might be sacrificing the thing that you said you wanted, or might be complicating the thing that you wanted and getting in the way of you actually getting there. And so my invitation for you is to pick at least one question from each bucket and do that this week, because the answers that you get will dictate that the actions that you take. Because success is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters consistently and simply. And the one thing that I can tell you in my years of experience, this is the one line that I have to hold myself to: simplicity always scales. It's measurable, it's tangible, you can make adjustments to it, you can be fast, and then you can execute. And anywhere where we find ourselves in overcomplication, in moving the starting line, in iterating till the death, we end up at the dinner table with no food to eat because we're overthinking it. We're staring at the refrigerator, we're staring at the pantry, and we're not taking the time to go audit what ingredients we have, which ones we want to cook with, and which ones we need to throw out so that we can make that recipe to eat for dinner. And so I highly encourage this, because I just witnessed 125 women have breakthroughs being guided through all of this. And I promise you that the only thing on the other side of this exercise is clarity and a permission slip to take action. But I will also be blunt with you. It also eliminates our hiding place. We can't overthink it. We can't overcomplicate it. We can't make a new process for this. It's a pen and paper with a couple of questions in the space to create that clarity so that we can spend more time executing and less time thinking about executing, feeling overwhelmed with the results that we don't have from the work that we didn't do. It's a Mike Tyson quote. Well, not originally, but he said it, and I love it. And it's something I remind myself of often. And so here is your permission slip and your invitation to make it simple, make it yours, and make sure that you're doing it in alignment with yourself at the deepest level. And if you want to share and fill my bucket, I would love for you to shoot me a DM on Instagram and tell me what's one thing that you're simplifying this week. Just tell me one thing that you're simplifying. I'm simplifying my podcast process. I'm simplifying how I create content. I'm simplifying how I do my emails. I'm going to simplify how I connect with my customers. But I want to know, because I also want to be here to hold you accountable, and secretly for you to hold me accountable as I work through this same thing every day. And so that's what I had to share today. I appreciate all of you. I think we did it. I didn't go too long, but I tried to keep the episode in length, in shortness, for simplicity and not complexity. So it's about 20 minutes of meat. So go through those buckets. Go through the emotional bucket. Go through the personal bucket. Go through the business bucket. Give yourself the space and the permission slip to release the emotions, to brain dump. And this is pen to paper. Do not type it. You need an actual pen and an actual piece of paper. And then give yourself the space to reflect on those questions. And just because I love books, this is also one of the biggest takeaways from Keith Cunningham's book, The Road Less Stupid, where he has this intentional practice at the end of every chapter called thinking time. And the only way to get your business to work for you instead of you working for your business is to actually step away and look at it from outside the pill bottle, and then be willing to go back into the kitchen and make adjustments. And so I love you to absolute pieces. I appreciate you immensely. I want you to remember that relationships will always beat algorithms, and most importantly, the one with yourself. God bless you. Have a good day, and I can't wait to talk to you on Instagram.